Jammu and Kashmir's second phase of voting has taken place today in a historic election, the first in 10 years, the first since the abrogation of Article 370. I'm Barkha Dutt, you're with the Mojo story. Our focus over the last 2 weeks has been on the historic election that is taking place in Jammu and Kashmir. It's a historic election for many reasons, not just for the fact that it's taking place at all, the first in a decade, but for the fact that there are very many unusual candidates in the fray. For the first time since 1987, we are seeing candidates backed by the Jamaat-e-Islami, otherwise a banned group by the Modi government in 2019, backing 10 independent candidates. We are seeing politicians like Engineer Rashid, who was able to defeat Omar Abdullah and Sajid alone in the Lok Sabha elections, also emerging as what some would call the X factor. In this phase, Omar Abdullah's 2 seats, the seats that he's contesting from Budgam and Ganderbal, have also voted. Jammu is voting in large numbers, and who will be the next Chief Minister of Jammu and Kashmir will have a lot to do with how the BJP and the Congress respectively perform in the area of Jammu. Today, interestingly, Omar Abdullah said that the Congress had not done as much hard work as was expected by its alliance partner in the area of Jammu. So there are a lot of balls up in the air. We're seeing unusual candidates. Like I said, the Jamaat-e-Islami breaking from the past to back candidates. We are seeing individuals like Engineer Rashid. We're seeing the BJP fielding 19 candidates in the Kashmir Valley. That's not a very high number. The last time it fielded lower candidates than that was in 1996. And we're seeing Jammu also emerge as a key sort of talking point in terms of what happens finally and who is the next chief minister of a state where, of course, first the statehood has to be restored. That's something, and perhaps the only thing on which political parties have a consensus. But the big significant question to emerge from these historical elections is this: is separatism being mainstreamed in these elections? Even Afzal Guru's brother, Afzal Guru, who was hanged for his role in the parliament attack, his brother is contesting from the North Kashmir town of Sopore. So a lot to talk about in terms of both the significance and the politics of this election. Let me introduce our guests. We have been on the ground in Jammu and Kashmir, particularly in the Kashmir Valley, but today our guests are joining us live from Srinagar and Jammu, the Jammu areas. Let me bring up our guests now to welcome them to the program. Joining us is Ifra Jan, leader of the National Conference. Welcome, Ifra. It's good to see you again. Also joining us is Zafar Chaudhary, senior journalist. Welcome, sir, to the program. Good to see you after a long time. Also joining us from the BJP is Sajid Yousuf Shah, young leader of the party, very outspoken voice, was there when the Prime Minister was addressing the rally. Welcome back, Sajid. And also joining me is my colleague and friend, Mirchandani, veteran journalist, who, like me, has just returned from spending some time on the ground in the Kashmir Valley. We were hoping to have Waheed Parra of the PDP with us, and we hope as the conversation goes along, he'll be able to join us as well. We also have different snippets of our various interviews on the ground, and we'll play those as well. But let me get first comments from all of you. Ifra, I'll start with you. Your leader's fate, as it were, was at stake in this phase. Ganderbal and Budgam, the 2 seats from which Mr. Abdullah is contesting, have voted. What's it looking like? He did say to me in an interview that he believed this to be his toughest election ever since he's been in politics. Are you breathing easier? Are you a bit concerned about the turnout in both of these seats? How are you looking at it?
No, I mean, looking at the turnout in both the seats, looking at the kind of response we have gotten, inshallah, I can say to you with full confidence that we are winning both the seats. But Barkha, let's not forget that National Conference's fate is not based on 1 seat, 2 seat, or any electoral politics for that matter. We've been in the fray for past 70 years. There was a time when Sheikh Abdullah Saab had been put in jail for 22 years. National Conference survived that. National Conference survived dozens of proxy political parties being parachuted by Delhi, for example, the Bakshi, the Sadiqs, ever since the 1953. So we have survived so much. So I would never say that our political future in any way is dependent on 1 seat on the other. National Conference remains an essential part of the politics of Jammu and Kashmir. And it remains probably the only advocate at this point, because we are the only consistent advocate for greater federalism, for greater powers for Jammu and Kashmir. And we have done that for we have done that since 1948. As long as that sentiment remains that we need more powers, we need the pre-1953 position, we need whatever we can get within the Constitution of India, National Conference remains a formidable force.
Now, before I open this up, you said the National Conference has survived many proxies. I take it that you believe that there are many proxies that you might not, what you're calling proxies, in this election. Do you care to identify them? And when you say proxies, do you mean proxies of BJP or do you mean proxies of somebody else? And if you're calling them BJP proxies, please identify them by name so that we don't talk in riddles.
Great. Give me 2 minutes and I'll give you a list of them. In
Okay.
1953, Sheikh Saab was put in jail by Nehru, interestingly, our alliance partner at this time. The moment we were put in jail, somebody else, Ghulam Sadiq, some Bakshi Saab, was installed as the prime minister. Once he had been taken care of, they installed somebody else. Mir Qasim was installed as the prime minister. Once he was done away with, it was Sadiq Saab who was installed as a prime minister, all while National Conference was banned from fighting the election. We had been banned from fighting for years and decades for that matter. In 1983, we somehow come back with we win an election. In 1984, Indira Gandhi ji's government comes and topples our government using her favorite person, Mufti Muhammad Sayyid, and our government is toppled again. A new government is put up using central government. Again in 1989, we give up on but then they come up with the governor's rule. In 2000, if you were to talk about the PDP's formation for that matter, once National Conference comes with the autonomy resolution, the central government at that point ensures that National Conference never has the power, the numbers, and the temerity to do something like the autonomy resolution again. It helps the formation of PDP as a political party. Now, talking about post 2018, Ram Madhav ji comes to Jammu and Kashmir. I will show you the Hindu headline on November 8th, 2018. The Hindu headline says BJP opens its political front in Jammu and Kashmir. It has Ram Madhav on one side, Sujad Lone on the other side, and Junaid Mattu, our mayor, on the other side. Coming to the recent Lok Sabha elections, Ravinder Raina, the chief of BJP government, comes and says, Jammu and Kashmir BJP government comes and says, Kashmir mein hamara chinna bat aur ball hoga, referring to another political party here. Their other spokespersons, Ravinder Raina and Tuhin Sinha, on national television have been saying they will form the government with the help of the independents. Who are these independents? So maybe the BJP government has already given us dozens of names of their proxy candidates. We also now need to know who are these more independents that they put in the field. So it's not we who are calling them proxies, it's the BJP themselves that's openly calling them their proxies.
Okay, let me bring in Sajid Yousuf Shah at this point. The questions have been raised about the release of engineer Rashid. In Lok Sabha, when he won, he was behind bars. Mr. Abdullah and others have questioned why he's the only one in his particular case to come out of jail. Questions have been raised about how the Jamaat-e-Islami, which is a group banned under the UAPA by the Modi government in 2019, is able to back 10 candidates, including one in the critical seat of South Kashmir in Kulgam, whose interview I'm just going to play out for you. None of this could be possible without the facilitation of Delhi, as it's called in the Kashmir Valley. How do you respond to this allegation coming from both the PDP and the National Conference on the BJP putting up proxies in the Kashmir Valley?
See, Barkha, let me tell you one thing, that the Bharatiya Janata Party don't need the proxies in Jammu and Kashmir to fight elections. You have mentioned Jamaat, and we all know Jamaat is not contesting elections on its own, or I can say that with the name of Jamaat. They are the individuals. They are the individuals, the 10 individuals, they are contesting elections on the name of ABC, or maybe on the name of the independent candidates. So Bharatiya Janata Party has nothing to do with that. And when it comes to Injil Rashid's concern, Injil Rashid was granted the bail, I can say the payroll, by the court, not the Bharatiya Janata Party's court. Bharatiya Janata Party has no stake in the courts. Bharatiya Janata Party don't give any kind of judgments. It's the court, it's the apex court of the law, either Supreme Court or the NI court, which has given the Injil Rashid's payroll for a particular period of time to, I can say, to campaign. because we have seen in the past elections that his own son, the Abrar, he used to campaign for his father, and he used to mention in his own speech that I'm not a politician, I'm not good at advocating for my father. So I am here till my father is in the jail. So right now, if Injil Rashid is out of jail, why the National Conference and other political parties have a threat? If they have done something for the people, if they have done something for people, why the Injil Rashid or other political the independent candidates are threat for the National Conference and the PDP? And remaining part is Bharatiya Janata Party. Aren't the independent candidates or Injil Rashid also threat for the Bharatiya Janata Party? We are also having that 19 candidates in Kashmir Valley. If tomorrow the independent candidates from any this organization, be it you call it Jamaat backed or whatever you call them, or Injurshis party, they won the elections. It's also I can say it's also the problem for the Bharatiya Janata Party, or for all the political parties. So Bharatiya Janata Party has nothing to do with Bharatiya Janata Party is same political. The Bharatiya Janata Party is the again a political party like the National Conference and the PDP. So it's an individual.
Yeah.
It's an
But are you,
organization.
why have you, why have you fielded such few candidates in the valley, and why have you never won a seat in the valley is a question for you to just park right now. Let me get first comments from everybody. I see Waheed Parra of the PDP joining us. I hope his signal holds. Let's get first comments, and there he went. Let me actually play out what the Jamaat-e-Islami candidate in South Kashmir said to me. He was contesting with a laptop as his symbol. His party's or his campaign slogan was top laptop. He's a professor, and he did not disown his connection with the Jamaat-e-Islami at all. So Sajid, when you say this is not the Jamaat-e-Islami, these are individuals. In fact, he very openly says that 1987 he did not believe was a fair election, and ab dunya badal rahi hai. You take a look for yourself, and then I'll come back to Maya and Zafar Saab. Let's play
बहुत
out
से
the
चुनाव में
Jamaat-e-Islami
बॉयकॉट कॉल होता था, जमात भी देती थी। इस बारी हम पार्टिसिपेशन की पॉलिटिक्स देख रहे हैं, ये चेंज आप कैसे एक्सप्लेन करें?
नहीं, जमात ने कभी बॉयकॉट नहीं दिया है। जमात ने हमेशा
पर हिस्सा नहीं लेते।
वो एहतजाजन हम दूर रहे थे इलेक्शन से, चूंकि एक तारीखी वो एलिगेशन नहीं है, वो प्रूव्ड है कि धांधलियां हुई थी 1987 में, और उसी की वजह से जो एतबार नहीं था इस फ्री और फेयर इलेक्शन पे। अब जो पिछले इलेक्शन हुए हैं पार्लियामेंट के, वो फ्री और फेयर हुए हैं, लिहाजा हमने सोचा कि अब माहौल भी है, दुनिया भी बदल रही है, हमें भी अब आगे आना चाहिए।
अब माहौल भी है और दुनिया भी बदल रही है, एंड आई थिंक दिस इज समथिंग दैट द बीजेपी वुड होल्ड ऑन टू कि माहौल भी है, दुनिया भी बदल रही है, नया कश्मीर है। जफर साहब, let's start with you. The entire focus has been on the Kashmir Valley. Not many are talking about the Jammu region, but actually who forms the next government is going to depend in large measure on what the performance is of the various parties there, particularly the BJP and the Congress. How are you looking at the significance of what's happening, in particular the engagement by the Jamaat-e-Islam?
So Jammu is basically facing a highly competitive election here. So Jamaat-e-Islami is not a very strong factor. So BJP is in the areas of Jammu, urban Jammu, Samba, Kathua and Udhampur, a concentration of 20 to 22 seats. And then you have, the other hilly areas like Chenab Valley and Pir Panchal, where National Conference and Congress are fighting together. But interestingly, what is important to note in these elections, that at almost every seat where people expect National Conference or Congress to win, BJP has reached a stage where the nearest rival is the BJP. So BJP is in direct contest on all those seats. So this is
so the BJP is emerging as a major contender in the Jammu region.
BJP is the key contender on each of the 43 seats in Jammu region. But earlier BJP's area was, restricted to Jammu, Samba, Kathua, the Hindu majority area, or the Chenab Basin area of Jammu. But now go to Rajouri, Poonch, Kishtwar, Doda, Riasi, wherever in Ramban. BJP is almost at every seat. BJP is the main rival, either with National Conference or with Congress. So these are these three players. I've been surprised to see that National Conference has been able to, put up its campaign really, really very well. But a lot of space National Conference has conceded to the Congress. But as Omar Abdullah pointed out, Congress hasn't worked really very well. So second phase of the election is over. Only one phase is left. So there has been only one public rally of Rahul Gandhi. But I think that they probably didn't want to carry a burden of Jammu and Kashmir to Haryana, where elections are happening simultaneously, which is why the top leadership of Congress is slightly keeping away from Jammu and Kashmir. But I mean, in a final calculation, this is probably one that election where Jammu is going to play a major role, that who forms the next government. Yeah,
and I was just saying that the media focus has been so much on Kashmir, but actually Jammu, the region of Jammu, could determine what happens next. But let's return to the valley.
I'm
We have
Jammu.
I know, I know Zafar साहब, but I'm saying जो हम लोगों ने काम किया है, हमने वैली में ज़्यादा रिपोर्टिंग की है, but आप you are enlightening us that Jammu could actually be the kingmaker of, Jammu could actually determine who's the next CM. Right?
I'm in Rajouri at the moment, in one of the remotest constituencies of Rajouri district. So I was able to join you from an open space. So I mean, this is the polling day here, and I've been to the polling station. The kind of excitement that I've seen is very rare to see, in other elections.
Yes, very important. The surge of this election is actually coming more from Jammu than in the valley, though I have to say that the valley feels very different. Maya, would you agree with that the valley does feel very different from anything that we have seen, let's say 10 years ago at least, right? If that's the benchmark, it feels very different. What that difference is, how that difference is expressing itself, that will be decoded after the results.
Right. I mean, I remember when I covered the 2014 elections from South Kashmir, it was on the back of the floods and a very tenuous chief ministership for Omar Abdullah. So it was quite clear which way the results would go then. And it was winter. And so you had people coming into the polling stations in fairly large numbers. But there was always the threat of the boycott, the call of the boycott, who's going to come, who's not going to come, etc. I think what's starkly different this time, as you mentioned right in the beginning, is the absence of a boycott call for this election. Nobody is saying don't go and vote. In fact, one of the things that I got is that people are angry with the BJP. People in the valley are angry with the BJP for having abrogated Article 370 or read it down, or whatever the terminology you want to use for that. And they are going to show their anger to the BJP by going out to vote. So it's almost like inverting the argument in a sense on his head. I found that quite interesting. And I tried to ask them, well, if the BJP is saying that, look at the number that have come out in the first phase, the turnout is great, they're calling it a victory for democracy, a justification of the right decisions that they've taken, and yet here you are telling me you're actually doing it to tell them how angry you are. How do you square this off in your mind? And their answer is they will find out when it comes to the results. The sense I got, at least, and I want to sort of differentiate between urban and rural voters over here. The urban voter in Srinagar and its environs seem very clear that the independents are there essentially to cut the mainstream vote. And that would mean an open playing field for the BJP, for example, and they're wary about that. In fact, somebody told me that when a Kashmiri is not really able to make sense of why somebody is coming together or why somebody is saying something, the instinct is to be suspicious of them. So I think that's what's kind of playing at their mind, like, why is engineer Rashid out for 15 days suddenly, or why is Surgeon Barkati, 16-year-old daughter, who, I spoke to her on the phone because she was too scared to meet me face to face. She gave us a location, and when we went into our WhatsApp messages to find the location, she had deleted it. Luckily, we'd saved it in our Google search history. So we managed. When we got there, she was gone. And, I got through 2-3 people to try and speak to her. She's a 16-year-old kid. At one level, I just felt like, why is she doing this? And she says, मैंने सिर्फ बोला कि आप वोट दो तो मेरे बाबा जेल से रिहा. Baba being Azadi Chacha and Pied Piper of post Burhan Wani, वो जेल से निकल जाएंगे. There are many questions of why his nomination was even accepted by the Election Commission. So, I think when these things don't make sense, there's an element of why is this happening? And Kashmiris by nature are suspicious of what happens in Delhi. So even if the BJP denies it, the question of whether there is Delhi's hand in all these people is looming large. It's hard to say what's going to happen, but I think what is clear is that the mainstream vote is going to get divided. because
And,
of
and, 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 and I find your thought, and it's actually something I picked up also, this thing of expressing rebellion within the framework of the election, or
yeah.
anger or dissatisfaction. This is quite interesting. It's patently what happened, Ifra, I don't know if you'd agree, in the Baramulla election when Omar Abdullah and Sajid Loan lose to Engineer Rashid. And when I met Engineer Rashid, he said it's because he was the one who was, it's ironic according to him that he's being called a BJP proxy. Because the phrase he used for your leaders and the leaders of the PDP was Safed Hathi. He said they were treated like white elephants. The government had to spend money on keeping them safe, and phir wo to nikal gaye, sirf main hi nahi nikla. So he's actually inverted the argument. So I just want your reaction. I'm going to play out a little snippet from Engineer Rashid's interview with me. But how do you see Engineer Rashid? Who is Engineer Rashid to you, Ifra, and to you, Sajid?
You see, Barkha, I think A.S. Dullat in his book has given us a long chapter on who Engineer Rashid is and what he's been up to. I think anyone who reads the Vajpayee years can actually find a good chunk of material on who Engineer Rashid is. But coming to his question, why was he released and why was Umar Abdullah Sahab released and why was Engineer Rashid Sahab not released? Because Umar Abdullah Sahab was not accused in a money laundering case. It's as simple as that. He had a PSA case on him, simply because the government thought that when Article 370 was abrogated, he could go out, he could mobilize his followers, there could be a protest, the situation could have not turned good for the government of India, which is why he was detained under the PSA for around a good 1 year. He did not have a money laundering case on him. Engineer Rashid, on the other hand, is in jail in a different case, which is the money laundering case. Coming to that, the second thing is, you talked about how people are using vote as their it's like a revenge vote. People are now talking to the government, against the government, using vote, and therefore it's some sort of it's an improvement in the situation. I would say, is it? Because in Jammu and Kashmir, for instance, you have no protests happening, especially in Kashmir Valley, because even peaceful protests have been criminalized. 1% of Kashmiri population forms 36% of UAPA cases in entire country. So please tell me, how do you expect any person to even come out and protest? The fact is not that people are doing it out of choice. The reality is that every other democratic avenue of protest has been shut off. Look at our press. I'll show you our newspapers. Barkha ji, I'll show you our newspapers someday if you ever come to Kashmir. I mean, you keep visiting. Our newspapers look like government gazette papers. You have literally Modi ji on every page. So that is what has happened to the local press. You have no protests, even peaceful protests are not allowed. Any person who dares to say something,
let Sajid respond. I get the essence of your argument. Sajid, quickly respond, because I believe Zafar Sahab has to leave early, so I want to get a quick word from him before he leaves. Please stay, Zafar Sahab, as long as you can. Sajid, go ahead.
Yeah, see, Ifra was mentioning about the proxies of the BJP. Let me ask the Ifra one thing, that why Saifuddin Soos, he was part and parcel of this national conference. Why he was sacked from the national conference? Just because he voted against the Bharatiya Janata Party at that time. So on one side, you are claiming that you are against the Bharatiya Janata Party. On the other side, you yourself used to be, if I'm not wrong, the minister in the Vajpayee's government at that time. Point number one. Point number second, on one side, you are claiming that you have the alliance part of the Congress. Can you please clarify the stance of the Congress on the Article 370? Congress has no stance on the Article 370. They talk about.
I think that's a fair question. I don't believe that 370 is going to be touched with a barge pole.
This is a news. Is it Modi ji on the newspaper? It's a Greater Kashmir. Is it Modi ji on newspaper or Rahul Gandhi?
What does it? Can you read out what you want to? Oh, that's an advertisement with Rahul Gandhi and Mr. Khari. I can see it now. Yes.
Can you please show me the BJP's? Can you please show me a single BJP's advertisement on the Kashmiri newspaper? Can you please show me a single news?
Okay, all right. Here's the question. Zafar Sahab, this question is for you. The question is, if there is a hung assembly with no clear winners, and by the way, that is a distinct possibility because of the Jammu factor. Because Jammu's politics may play out in a very different way from the Kashmir Valley's politics. then what you need is one of the valley-based parties to be ready to do business with the BJP, which is very difficult for them. And I asked both Engineer Rashid and Omar Abdullah this question, could you tie up with the BJP? Are you, sir, looking at the possibility of a hung assembly based on the patterns you're seeing in Jammu, where the BJP has emerged as a contender in all the states? Or do you believe that the National Conference or the PDP will manage to keep a significant slice of the pie in Jammu? आप कैसे देख रहे हैं Jammu region?
So, hung assembly is a greater possibility because there is a provision that the government has the provision to nominate 5 members of the assembly, and that is before the government formation, which means that any alliance that is thinking of forming the government has to start from the seat number 6. So, they need 5 seats more than any other alliance to be able to form the government. For BJP is, of course, very eager to be able to find out an ally to form the government. But National Conference and People's Democratic Party have proved in the past that nothing can be ruled out if you have to join hands with BJP. So people had already started talking about that. Is National Conference, the party, New Delhi is looking up as the potential partner in Kashmir. So
what did you make of Omar Abdullah's criticism? He criticized them even in his interview to me, but today he made a very direct statement. He said the Congress has not worked as hard in Jammu as we expected it to. And a Congress leader whom I won't name, who's been campaigning in Jammu, he messaged me to say, I think National Conference is preparing for other alternatives. I don't know how you see it, Zafar.
No, I don't think so, because that is an outburst of anger. Because the Rahul Gandhi had come to Srinagar, Mallikarjun Kharge had come to Srinagar, and National Conference thought that probably they'll work really very hard in Jammu, which they did not do. So Omar Abdullah is a little angry on that, but they decisively entered into this alliance with Congress to make sure and tell everyone to send this message that there is absolutely no engagement with BJP. So what is the fear in Jammu and Kashmir? It's entirely everywhere. It's not only in Kashmir. It's a fear in the areas of Jammu as well, that if there is a hung assembly and post 2019 experience and the National Conference and PDP completely refuse to ally with BJP, and BJP on its own is not in a position to form government, their secret or clandestine allies do not have the numbers to pitch in and make that number. Is Jammu and Kashmir headed for another central rule, for another spell of central rule? That is what is being talked about in Jammu and Kashmir at the moment. So
I think that's a very, very incisive point. And Maya, you wanted to come in briefly there because I want to play out what Engineer Rashid and Omar Abdullah both say when asked, can you join hands with the BJP? Maya, go ahead.
Yeah, I just very quickly, I think Zafar has sort of touched upon what I was going to say, but I think the National Conference would find it very hard going if they were to walk away from the India alliance after the election results. So I would rule that out pretty much, because I think going in, it's the first time they had a pre-poll alliance. So I think going in with a pre-poll alliance was a statement that they made. It would be very, very difficult for them to walk away. The PDP walked away from the India Alliance partnership at the time of seat sharing, not just now in the assembly elections, but also for the Lok Sabha. The PDP is positioning itself as a kingmaker. When I spoke to Engineer Rashid as well, he said, अगर हम 4 सीट भी जीते ना, you see मैं क्या करने वाला हूँ, मैं उसके साथ negotiate करूँगा. So I want to actually take it one step forward and completely speculatively say, what if it's PDP, Engineer Rashid together backing a BJP-led coalition? I think
can Mehbooba Mufti afford to do that again? Because one of the things that she's Zafar Saab has to go, so I'll take a last comment from him. Zafar Chaudhary, please, sir, your last thoughts. Zafar Chaudhary, before you go.
I mean, it's absolutely difficult to rule out anything in politics. But after 2019, it will take at least 10 years for any Kashmiri party, PDP and National Conference particularly, a party which has not been encouraged by any establishment or someone else, to be able to ally with BJP and justify itself that why did they do that. So,
okay, Zafar Chaudhary, we'll let you go now. We hope to have you back on our future programs. But to Maya's point, who can ally with the BJP? And I'm sure Ifra and Sajid also have things to say on this. I put this question to Omar Abdullah and Engineer Rashid. We'll start with Omar Abdullah, get comments, and then play Engineer Rashid in the end. I asked Omar Abdullah, for political survival, could he tie up with the BJP? And this is what he said.
Now, Umar, we've all been around long enough, we're old enough to know that, as the cliche goes, politics makes for strange bedfellows. So, the National Conference and the BJP were not predictable allies. Mehbooba Mufti and the BJP were not predictable allies. So, I have to ask you, do you ever see yourself, if it came to a matter of political survival, tying up with the BJP
Actually,
again?
tying up with the BJP would be the exact opposite of political survival. Today, Mehbooba Mufti is actually struggling for political survival because of 2014. Today, her daughter runs a serious risk of losing her first election because of 2014. So tying up with the BJP for the national conference, and for me, would be the exact opposite of what you're saying. It wouldn't be political survival. It would be the death of our politics and my political career.
Is your difference with Modi's BJP or is it with the BJP?
At this point in time, how do you separate the two?
Okay, let's bring in Sajid Yousuf Shah. The BJP, even if it does very well in Jammu, is going to need partners. You have never historically won a single seat in the valley. You know, where are these partners, possibly?
Never late, maybe. Never late, maybe. This time we may get some seats from the Kashmir Valley. We just have to wait for.
Okay.
It's just a matter of time. We have to wait for a week almost. So let's wait, then we can make a comment.
But in terms of what Omar Abdullah just said, Sajid, if you'd want to respond, that, you know, it would be the death of my politics. The fact is the National Conference has been an ally of the BJP, as has the PDP. But you heard Zafar Saab that no Kashmir party can afford to do it today. Not after 370.
I will be very honest. Umar Saab, Mehbooba ji, they are without the power. Almost for a decade now, without the power now for a decade. If tomorrow they will get a chance to join hands with the Bharatiya Janata, but they will definitely do. And you have seen the intro of the former National Conference leader, Davinder Singh Raina ji. He has mentioned in his speech or the podcast that it was the Umar Saab who used to go to Delhi and met the Madhav Prime Minister, and he used to say, I want to form the government. It was the Bharatiya Janata Party who shunned the doors.
So आपको लगता है मौका मिले तो दोनों पार्टीज तैयार होंगी?
100% मैं कह सकता हूँ. 100, they can go to any extent.
Okay, I must get Ifra to respond to that and then Maya. Ifra, 100% अगर मौका मिले तो आप लोग tie up करेंगे बीजेपी के साथ. Please respond.
टाई अप करना होता, अगर हमें बीजेपी के साथ टाई अप करना होता तो बीजेपी ने इलेक्शंस आज से पहले 4 साल कर लिए होते. हम 4 साल बिना पावर के नहीं रहते. हमें सुप्रीम कोर्ट इलेक्शंस करने के लिए नहीं जाना पड़ता. द रियलिटी इज दैट दीज इलेक्शंस वर स्टॉल्ड सिंपली बिकॉज नेशनल कॉन्फ्रेंस रिफ्यूज्ड टू ally with the BJP in the constant backdoor negotiations that they tried to enter with us, and we asked them to get out, which is why this fight had to go to the court, and which is why it was the court that had to order an election in Jammu and Kashmir. My second point is, Barkha ji, now that we are looking at Jamaat and Engineer Rashid and people with a separatist background participating, we see Sajid Sahab and BJP people are actually welcoming it. I saw a lot of otherwise what we call Godi media channels constantly air these people, give them interviews. Now, if you look at the same attitude of the same people towards, let's suppose, if we say, let's talk to the separatists, these very people used to pay for our blood for simply saying, let's talk to them. Today, when these people are using, the same people are cutting down the vote, and somehow BJP senses that it's helping the BJP, suddenly the patriotism has gone out of the window. And suddenly it's all okay, and they say हमारा तो कुछ है नहीं, तो सब कोर्ट कर रहे हैं, कोर्ट बेल दे रहे हैं, हमें क्या? अगर कुछ और होता, अगर हमने बोला होता कि इनके साथ बात करो, जो नेशनल कॉन्फ्रेंस कहती थी कि हुर्रियत के साथ बात करो, जमातियों के साथ बात करो, इनको डीक्रिमिनलाइज करो, उस टाइम हम टेररिस्ट बन जाते थे. एक और पॉइंट बरखा है, you are asking the wrong question, Barkha, when you ask this question to Engineer Rashid कि क्या आप बीजेपी के साथ ally करेंगे. This is a wrong question to ask, and I'll tell you why. Because Engineer Rashid will not, there is no registered party, which means अगर उसके 4 MLA भी बनते हैं, चारों MLA independent होंगे और वो खुद जेल में होंगे. So a better question to ask him would be, when you will be in jail, in the absence of the anti-defection law applying to your independent MLAs, how are you going to ensure that your independent candidates who have already shown an inclination towards the BJP will not ally with the BJP.
I get your point, and I do actually take your point that hyper patriotic, though I don't like using that word for them, channels are who would otherwise lambast parties for suggesting ki Engineer Rashid se baat karo, Jamaat-e-Islami se baat karo, are today very happy to celebrate them. But Maya, politics is the art of the possible. And every single government in Delhi, be it the Congress or Vajpayee's BJP or Modi's BJP, has tried these projects in the Kashmir Valley, has attempted to create a new political class, has attempted to talk with separatists, has attempted to talk with militants. The only difference is sometimes these things happen covertly, sometimes they happen overtly. I actually see no difference in anybody's, in anybody's Project Delhi when it comes to the Kashmir Valley. Did you sense from your trip that indeed, not just is there anger with the BJP in the valley, not in Jammu, that you mentioned, but there's also anger with what is called mainstream valley parties? How else do we explain Baramulla? How do we explain Baramulla?
So, yes, there's a general sense of, I think what was anger with the mainstream parties, an intense anger after 2019, has settled into a kind of frustration, disappointment, sense of feeling let down. Baramulla, when I in fact asked Omar Abdullah about how he felt about the Baramulla campaign looking back, and I said, why didn't you have a better campaign plank or a slogan? And his answer was, how do you counter a slogan that says, vote for my father so he's not hanged and he can be let out of jail? It's a very powerful kind of emotive slogan. It may not be a logical one because the people are not sitting there and saying that, the court is going to give bail or not give bail, and if they go back, what's going to happen? Nobody's sitting and asking those questions. What they're doing is saying that my father is in jail, let him out. This is an emotional appeal, and I think almost every family in the Kashmir Valley has some kind of, they identify with this kind of a slogan. What really struck me, actually, apart from the anger with the mainstream parties, the frustration or whatever, and absolute anger against the BJP for sure, was my own sense, my own takeaway, was that this idea that Jammu and Kashmir today is a union territory that is voting a state assembly back in power. It's post the reading down of 370. It's sort of a new Naya Kashmir, Modi's Naya Kashmir, not Abdullah's Naya Kashmir anymore. But that kind of sloganeering. But in a sense, the electoral politics today is the same cynical electoral politics that Jammu and Kashmir has seen, whether it was in 84 or 87 or 49 or whatever.
Except that it cannot be compared to 87 because it is clearly a fair election. It cannot be compared to 87.
I'm not questioning the
87 birthed Yasin Malik and Syed Salahuddin.
Yeah. So let me clarify what I mean to say. I'm not saying it's the same in terms of the nature of the electoral sort of landscape. I'm saying it's cynical because in the 87 election, when the NC and the Congress got together and the charges of the election being rigged, etc., the shoe is kind of, in a sense, on the other foot. Now who's getting together? How are they managing this? Who are allies on the ground? There are so many questions. And that's what I mean by cynical politics. In a sense that the people don't believe that they may go out and vote freely and fairly. Yes, nobody's telling them who to vote for or how they should cast their vote. But the choices that they are being presented with have been designed not necessarily by their will and their democratic right. It's being designed in Delhi.
Okay, we will get far. I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying. Before I take last comments from all of you, the man in the headlines, the most talked about man, whether you call him a proxy or you call him a new force, and it'll be interesting to see what the numbers show for Engineer Rashid. And I take Ifra's point that these are not registered parties, and therefore there can be any kind of Torpor, and so on. Even so, he is the man in the headlines, and we did ask him what he would consider about any sort of partnership with the BJP, and this is what he said. Take a look.
If there is a hung assembly, who are you ready to support? Are you ready to support? Are you ready to support a government with BJP?
मेरी बात सुनिए, मेरे लिए सरकार बनाना प्रायोरिटी नहीं है।
पर हाँ या ना में तो बताइए।
नहीं, मैं आपकी अदालत में थोड़ा हूँ, हो सकता है कोई सवाल में जवाब ना दूं।
जी, ये तो बस फेयर नहीं है ना।
नहीं, क्यों फेयर नहीं है?
नहीं बताइए ना।
नहीं, मैं इतना कह रहा हूँ कि जैसे ही 8 तारीख आती है
जी,
जो रेस्पॉन्स मिल रहा है, मैं मोदी जी की तरह उतना विद्वान नहीं कि मैं कहूँगा अब की बार 400 बार। मैं इतना कहूँगा आई एम श्योर माय पीपल विल नॉट लेट मी डाउन।
मीडिया में क्लीशे चलता है, किंग है कि किंग मेकर है।
देखिए, ये इलेक्शन बहुत ही अनप्रेडिक्टेबल चीज होती है। जो मैं रेस्पॉन्स देख रहा हूँ, मुझे तो यकीन है 34 के 34 आदमी जीतेंगे, ऐसा भी हो सकता है। क्योंकि कोई एक मुझे बताए, त्राल में गया, आपने भी देखा 10-15 हजार की भीड़ थी। कुकरनाग में तो सारा कुकरनाग सड़कों पर निकला आया। शुपैया में मैंने चौक में, मतलब शुपैया चौक में शायद जो उन्होंने गिना, लोगों ने कहा 4 लोगों का नाम लिया जिन्होंने आज तक जुर्रत की है वहां स्पीच करने की, मेन चौक। मैंने एक बार तो मैंने किया, दूसरी बार मुझे लोगों ने जबरदस्ती पकड़ लिया, फिर हजारों की तरह भीड़ आई और मेरा सब कुछ डालता हमने सोशल मीडिया पर। आई हैव नथिंग टू हाइड।
Okay, so engineer Rashid, who has nothing to hide, believes that हो सकता है कि उन्हीं की सरकार बने. This is actually what he said in the end, and he avoided, interestingly, the question of a partnership with the BJP. I want last comments. I'll start with you, Sajid, then Ifra, and then I can have the last word. Sajid, Yousuf, Shah. Go ahead.
See, Engineer Rashid got the mandate of the people, and we as a Bharatiya Janata Party, as an individual, I respect the people's mandate. If, for example, the Umar Saab, he won the elections the Baramulla. I also I respect the people's mandate. So I can't judge the people why people has voted for the Engineer Rashid. It's a people's mandate, so we have to respect that. And right now, if we will start saying that Engineer Rashid or ABC, they are the proxies, but can you please tell me that in the previous elections, his son was saying that if you give the votes to my father, he will be released. And tomorrow, he don't have anything to sell. Right now, I'm saying on your show that Engineer Rashid, whosoever the anti-nationals, they will land in the jail. There is the Bharatiya Janata Party has a clear stand on these anti-nationals that they will go to the jail. You have seen the statements of Amit Shah. He has mentioned recently that जितने भी ये लोग हैं इनका काला चिट्टा बना हुआ ये सब जेल जाएंगे. तो इंजीनियर रशीद के भी जी काले करता में है. He was in the jail for his crimes. वो कोई दूध का जलावा नहीं है. कल की डेट में
कल कोर्ट एक्विट कर दे तो क्या करेंगे? कल कोर्ट बेल दे दे तो क्या करेंगे?
इस कोर्ट
आपने कहा ना कि बेल तो कोर्ट से मिली, बीजेपी से नहीं मिली, तो कल भी मिल सकती है.
We can appeal in the court of law. We are also the party. National Conference also is the party.
So you will not tie up with Engineer Rashid? Let me ask you the same question.
नहीं.
हाँ? तो किसके साथ tie up कर? तो आप NCPDP के साथ कर सकते हैं, लेकिन Engineer Rashid के साथ नहीं कर सकते.
देखिए ये चीज है, भारतीय जनता पार्टी जब तक कहीं इलेक्शन में जब तक हमें कहीं ना कहीं रिजल्ट सामने ना आए तब तक हम कुछ बोल नहीं सकते इस बारे में.
ठीक है, fair enough. Ifra, Omar also told my colleague Zafar that Engineer Rashid's brother had actually approached him, not this election but earlier, and asked for help, and Omar says that he made a big mistake by not taking that help. Now, looking back at what happened, how he lost the Lok Sabha elections. If you had to make a prediction for who will form the next government, who will be chief minister, whose party will be in the chief minister's chair, what would you say?
You see, as Maya ji has very clearly said, people understand exactly on ground what is going on. So I assure you that it is National Conference that will not need any partners. We are already in an alliance with the Congress, and it will be our alliance partnership, and together we will form the government. Now, that is a separate thing. If you look at the 2 points I would like to make. If you look at the numbers, this election, assembly के जो election हुए थे, and if we compare them to the Lok Sabha election, they have actually gone down. इसके 2 reasons है. पहली बात, the BJP constantly kept
They've
saying
also gone down in your two. If I can bring that slide up, I was looking at Ganderbal and Budgam, and I don't know if this worries you, but they've also gone down for the 2 seats that Mr. Abdullah is contesting for. But please go ahead.
They've also gone down considerably everywhere in Kashmir Valley, simply because BJP government on TV, on national television, non-stop has been saying that the credit of people coming out and voting goes to the BJP. Nobody in Jammu and Kashmir wants to give them any sort of credit. So that has actually been something which has turned them off. Second thing is that after the Lok Sabha elections, after people participated, BJP government using its powers actually took away whatever little powers people had in the union territory government, and further reduced their powers, the powers of the elected representatives. And one last point, Barkhaji, one thing that I think we had so much to talk about. One thing we may have missed is that BJP government also got some foreign delegates to be election observers in Jammu and Kashmir. Now imagine for a second if any other government had gotten foreign diplomats as observers in India, these very people would have called us anti-nationals, would have called us foreigners, would have said everything. And when the BJP does it, suddenly everything becomes okay. And I would like to end the show on my comments on this show on one point. If foreign diplomats can be allowed as election observers, why, Sajid Yousuf Sahab, is the BJP not allowing foreign journalists to report independently? If foreign diplomats are allowed, why not foreign journalists?
Okay. I must allow Sajid to respond to this, and then Maya can have the closing comments. Sajid Sahab, please.
देखिए एक चीज है, इफरा जी कह रहे हैं कि यहाँ पे जो अभी जो फॉरेन कंट्री से लोग आए, जब भी फॉरेन कंट्री जैसे यूएस एम्बेसडर रिसेंटली शायद उमर साहब के घर भी गए थे, जब इनके लोगों से मिले तब कोई दिक्कत नहीं होती, तब ये बात करते हैं कश्मीर मसले पे, ये किसी यूएस डिप्लोमेट को ला सकते हैं, उस पर बात कर सकते हैं, तब कोई आपत्ति नहीं है।
पर उनका क्या रेलेवेंस है, वो क्यों है वहां पे? मैं तो कहती हूँ, मैं समझना चाहती हूँ क्यों है, मतलब हमें दुनिया को तो नहीं दिखा रहा कि हमारी इलेक्शन फ्री एंड फेयर है, हम विश्वास करते हैं कि फ्री एंड फेयर है, ये सवाल है ना उनका।
लेकिन लोगों का देखिए, जो नेशनल कॉन्फ्रेंस कांग्रेस के जो क्राइम्स है पुराने वाले, जो इन लोगों ने पिछली बार इलेक्शन रिग किया, इसलिए तो यहाँ पे वोटिंग परसेंटेज डाउन रहती थी। आज जो है लोगों को ये चीज दिखाना चाहता है, ये लोग कहते हैं भारतीय जनता पार्टी प्रॉक्सीज को ला रही है, भारतीय जनता पार्टी कैन गो टू एनी एक्शन टू विन द इलेक्शंस, ये चीज उसका आंसर है। रही दूसरी चीज है, इफरा जी ने बात की कि यहाँ पे फॉरेन जो मीडिया है उसको अलाउ नहीं कर सकते। मुझे आप कुछ नाम बताइए, 2 या 3 नाम बताइए किसको अलाउ नहीं किया गया आज। आई हैंडल द मीडिया डिपार्टमेंट द बीजेपी, I coordinate the I coordinate the media. I coordinate the media. जितनी भी मीडिया आती है, I coordinate. I am the point of contact. तो मुझे नहीं लगता ऐसा कोई
So Ifra Jan will send Ifra will send you a WhatsApp text after this show.
Just one line: foreign journalists are not allowed to report in Jammu and Kashmir.
नाम बताइए।
नाम को है नहीं, एक blanket ban है सब पे।
I'm saying
journalists को एक blanket ban है to report in Jammu and Kashmir.
I coordinate with national, international media. मैं उनसे बात करता हूँ।
Who are the foreign journalists? Like, you can have a BBC, but you will have to have an Indian
BBC
journalist.
have their reporters in the valley. BBC have their own
आप
reporters
सुन
in
नहीं
the
रहे हो
valley.
मेरी बात, साजिद? You can have the BBC, but you
नहीं,
cannot
आप
have
rhetoric नहीं
a
बोल
foreign
सकते।
journalist
जो
on
भी
the
है,
BBC
जो भी
in the
नहीं,
valley.
Okay, Ifra, you can continue this argument offline. Sajid is saying the BBC is there. Ifra is saying, but the BBC is there with Indian reporters. I guess that's what you're saying. You can continue this argument offline. I think you both made your points very passionately. Maya, I think it's important to also acknowledge that every election we look for hope. The fact is that everybody in Jammu and Kashmir has a personal story of tragedy and loss. It could be a soldier's family in the Jammu region. It could be a Kashmiri Pandit on whom we have seen targeted attacks. It could be Sajid himself, whose own mother was shot by terrorists, right? So everybody has some tale of sorrow and looks towards the democratic process to make things better for them. Are we being dishonest with the people of Jammu and Kashmir when we center stage 370 as an issue? When I think one thing that Sajid said correctly is that whatever the National Conference and the PDP say about it, I doubt that the Congress that has been so low-key in this election so as to avoid controversy in Haryana is going to take a very strident position opposing it. So just a last thought on that from you.
Yeah, in fact, that's something that struck me when I spent all of Sunday in Ganderbal, actually, and I sat, talking to people from all walks of life in the constituency. And the one thing that struck me, whether it was Ganderbal or Budgam or Birwa, wherever else I went, was that actually we are talking about these issues. I mean, 370 is there in the back of everyone's mind, and Jo Delhi ne kiya, and etc. But I think the bigger concern for them was that there was no local administration. Everything was running through the governor's office. So whether it's development, education, healthcare, jobs, I think jobs was like, and I was sitting there and asking them, Yeah, and they said ये 370 जाने के बाद नौकरियां चली गई हैं और 370 जाने के बाद हमें टैक्स देना पड़ रहा है और 370 जाने के बाद ये करना पड़ रहा है. So I told him, I said, I mean these people I spoke to, I said नौकरियां तो आप लोकसभा इलेक्शंस में देखें पूरे देश में यही मुद्दा था, तो हाउ इज इट डिफरेंट फ्रॉम बाकी देश में क्या हो रहा है? बट इट वाज दे वर लिंकिंग डे टू डे इलेक्टोरल इश्यूज, रोटी कपड़ा और मकान, विथ 370 जले जाने के बाद ये सब और भी खराब हो गया है. सो इंटरेस्टिंगली एक्चुअली these issues were kind of coming out as front and center. Maybe that was just me and my conversation. Yeah. But I found that distinction very interesting because there was no like "Hame azadi chahiye." That slogan was not there this time around at all.
No azadi, no Pakistan, no boycott.
Yeah, no Pakistan. Yeah.
Let us acknowledge the things that are different. Lot of chahal pehal, lot of talk about anxiety around jobs. In fact, I would say before there was a comment on 370, there was a comment on jobs, and then some people would link it, as you said. Yeah. So I think one thing we can agree with Engineer Rashid on, this is a very complicated election. None of us know what's going to happen. I would hesitate to make any predictions. Yeah. I will leave it there. Thank you to Ifra and Sajid, and to Maya, and earlier to Zafar Saab. Maya wanted to say one thing. Can we unmute Maya? Yes, Maya.
Actually, I think it would be really interesting if with what it does with its seats in Jammu and its wins in Jammu, if the BJP does indeed decide to stake claim to form this government, I think that would really like put everybody in a tailspin.
And you never know. And you never know. And a lot will depend on who emerges as the single largest party. Absolutely. And we have to really, and therefore what Zafar Chaudhary was saying about the BJP's performance in Jammu and Umar's anger with the Congress today, it's very telling. And we should, in Jammu, we should watch that space. Thank you, Sajid, Ifra, Maya, and earlier to Zafar Saab and to our audience. Thank you, and see you tomorrow.
Thank you.
It's great to see you here. Thank you for watching our work. If you haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to click the bell icon and subscribe to Mojo Story and support independent, robust journalism.